of Gadadhara das Goswami. It's a very special day in the Vaishnava calendar, so we're going to be speaking about him today instead of the normal class. First we'll chant Jai Radha Madhava. First we'll tune the guitar, make sure it's all right. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunda Bihari Kini Banu
Yamuna Tiravadachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari
Paramahamsa Paravidikacharya also tell us that She Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chananana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anandakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Hridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prabhu Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidway Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Vachurnam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Munamai Ki Jai Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the assembled devotees, all glory is the Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasudaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nivishesha Srinivadi Paschata Deshtarni. Actually, I have to run upstairs and get my notes. I left them upstairs.
Yeah, we can move. We go to space here.
Oh, lots of spice.
So, Om Ganat Timirandasha Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shigurve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master's divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So today, by Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we are able to hear about Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, and this is his appearance day. So, for those of you who don't know, I think most of you know, Gadadhara Pandit Goswami is a member of the Pancha Tattva. So what does the Pancha Tattva mean? The 5 tattvas. Interesting. But there's only 3 tattvas amongst the 5 tattvas. Think about that. Because what tattvas? We talked about tattvas the last few days. Tattva means the Lord's energy, and us poor suffering souls. And also the souls who are serving Krishna, the jiva souls, right? Those are the 3 basic tattvas. Sometimes the tattvas are described as 4. Does anyone know? Remember I talked about this? No. Up to here. Because sometimes the material energy and the spiritual energy are divided into 2, although they are 1. Such as that verse from the Vishnu Purana, Vishnu Shakti Para Prokta Kshetra Gyakya Tata Para Vidyakarma Sanganya Tritiya Shakti Ishate. And that verse states that the tattvas are, well, there's Vishnu, of course, which is not mentioned in that verse, but the three others. Vishnu Shakti Para Prakriti, Para Prokta, the internal energy of the Lord. Kshetra Gyakya, that's us, the knower of the field of activities, the Tapara. We are also transcendental. And then Avidya Karma Sangyanya, the third one is known as ignorant activities, which is where we are right now, material energy. So anyway, there's basically 3 tattvas in the Panchatattva. Yeah, 3 tattvas. Because 3 are Vishnu tattva, right? Think about it. And 2, one is Jiva tattva, and the other one is Shakti tattva. So of course the Vishnu tattvas are, and they're all the same tattva. Don't think that there is any difference between the Vishnu tattvas. There's a difference in expression, manifestation, but there's no difference in power. Just like the Brahma Samhita states, it's like one candle lights many other candles. Also the statement in the Brahma Samhita, Advaita Achyuta Nadi Anantarupam Ajam Purana Purusham Navyovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlavam Adurlavam Atma Bhakto Savanam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajame. Advaita means they're one. So don't think that in the ontological sense that Lord Chaitanya is different than Lord Nityananda and Advaita Acharya. However, even though they're the same person, I'm not going to say persons, I'm going to say same person, they manifest as different persons for the sake of pastimes. So it's quite inconceivable that you have the same person manifesting as different persons, doing different things simultaneously and on unlimited circumstances. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? If you think about it. And even sometimes that same person, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, has disagreements with himself. It's amazing. Because in the material world, that would be called split personality or multiple personality disorder. But with Krishna, you understand? MPD, multiple personality disorder. But with Krishna, that's his Leela. For example, Balaram disagreed with Krishna insofar as who would marry Subhadra, right? Balaram liked Duryodhana. Krishna liked Arjuna. So there's some disagreement, and also with the smashing of Duryodhana's thigh, Balaram and Krishna disagreed. And you find many times disagreements there. But this is Leela. And how is it so? Can you understand it? No, you can't understand it. So don't try. Try to appreciate, like that cobbler who was appreciating how the Lord could put a whole tree into a seed. And the scientists, they try to understand these things, but they're not able to understand these things. And the further they delve into the analysis of matter, the more confusing it becomes. Anyone who's scientific inclined will know what I'm talking about. You know, like in microbiology or in atomic physics, which was my field. Secondarily, my field is Krishna consciousness. Primarily, it's microbiology and physics. But anyways, but in any case, it's inconceivable. The Lord's energy is inconceivable. How it acts, how it interacts. The soul is achintya, isn't it? Is it Chincha Shakti? So anyway, so those are the 3 Vishnu Tattva personalities. You have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, and Lord Nityananda, who is Balaram Hoyland Nitai. And then you have Advaita Acharya, who is variously described as Sadashiva Mahavishnu. So that's a question many people have. You know, Sadashiva is Advaita Acharya Shiva. No Advaita Acharya is Sadashiva. Sadashiva is the original Vishnu Tattva manifestation from whom Shiva in this material world expands. Is that understandable? And that's in the spiritual world, it's Sadashiva, and then Shiva, the Rudra incarnation, Shambhu, they all expand from that personality. So he's an expansion of Krishna, or a portion of the plenary portion. So next we get to Gadadhar Pandit, whose appearance day we were celebrating today. And he is Shakti Tattva. He's considered to be Rishabhanu Nandini, who is Radharani, expansion or a manifestation of Radharani. And then, of course, you have Srivas Thakur, who was considered to be Narada Muni, an incarnation of Narada Muni. So this is Jiva soul. So as far as Gadadhar Pandit Goswami is concerned, who we're going to be talking about today, even though he is Srimati Radharani, his mood is in many ways quite different than Srimati Radharani's mood. Of course, it's not to say that he's against Krishna, that's not the point. But he has a submissive mood to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's not the same bhav that you see experienced in the spiritual world, where Radharani, who's left-handed gopi, she has sometimes a very unsubmissive mood towards Krishna. In other words, Krishna deliberately tries to aggravate her. And what happens is the Radharani and her associates, they forbid Krishna to come near them. And sometimes they hold sticks, and sometimes they try to beat Krishna. So this is Radharani's bhav in the spiritual realm. Now, why is Gadadhar Pandit Goswami manifesting the more submissive bhav, which is generally understood to be Chandravali's bhav? You understand, you have Radharani and Chandravali. Chandravali is actually very submissive. Even if she gets a little upset, she doesn't take it out on Krishna. Whereas Radharani takes it out on Krishna. But Krishna enjoys that. He enjoys more a good argument with Radharani than he does the submissive attitude of Chandravali. So you may say, why is Gadadhar Pandit Goswami manifesting the submissive mood? The reason is because he's respecting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood, who is also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Krishna, but he's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So it wouldn't be appropriate for the Leela. Does everyone understand what I'm talking about? Wouldn't be appropriate for the Leela to have them both exhibit that same mood. So you find Gadadhar Pandit's mood is extremely submissive to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Extremely submissive. So let's talk about some of the pastimes of Gadadhar Pandit Goswami. He appeared, and this is what the biographers say, in the year 1486, and he disappeared from this world in 1534 AD. And he was born in a Brahmin family. It's called a Narendra Brahmin family. And he was the childhood friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In other words, they would play together and everything like that. However, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would act in the beginning of his pastimes in Navadvip as someone who was simply interested in Nyaya. For those of you who don't know what Nyaya is, we describe that in the Jaiva Dharma readings. Nyaya is like logic and reasoning and defeating people. It's almost like, without Nyaya is good. I mean, logic and reason is good. But without Krishna consciousness, it's what we call sophistry. Sophistry means just word jugglery. That word comes from Greek, in which Socrates had to deal with the sophists, those who were who in the modern day we call them lawyers, and who Prabhupada called. Sorry, we have some lawyers here. Anyway, Prabhupada called them mispronounced the word. He said liars. Anyway, so not all lawyers are like that. Some are really nice. They're devotees. We have a lot of lawyer friends. I almost said liar friends, but lawyer friends. So Lord Chaitanya acted as a sophist, and not as a devotee, at least not publicly as a devotee. And he would challenge the devotees to debates. And the devotees would try to avoid talking to him because, they understood he would defeat them. So the Lord was the best sophist. So there's this whole story that Gadadhara Pandit Goswami and others said to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, why don't you just worship Krishna? And they were praying all the time that he would become a devotee, because they thought if Nimai Pandit becomes a devotee, he'll be the best preacher. And he was the best preacher. And so one time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Gadadhara Pandit Goswami that one day, Gadadhara, I will become such a great devotee that even Lord Brahma will worship me. And Gadadhara thought, this personality has some problems, an ego problem. So Gadadhara Pandit Goswami's character was he was very renounced from this world. He's never married, and he enjoyed solitude. Always he liked to be alone. Whoops, keep getting. Oh my God! Someone keeps sending me messages. Let me turn this off. That's very disturbing. So he liked solitude very much, and he had a lot of association with Ishwara Puri, because Ishwara Puri, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master, would sometimes visit Navadvip. And Ishwara Puri taught Gadadhara Pandit Goswami his book called the Krishna Lilamrita. Krishna Lilamrita. And it's even described in other biographies that Ishwara Puri at one point asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to edit that book. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sort of refused. He said, who can edit the book of such a great personality? Of course, Lord Chaitanya later took initiation from Ishwara Puri in Gaya. So, then later on, of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. Took initiation, sorry. He took initiation, and then he manifested himself as the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And then Lord Chaitanya called for Gadadhara Pandit Goswami. And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami was very happy to see Lord Chaitanya manifesting devotional symptoms. And so what happened later on is, so far as Gadadhara Pandit Goswami's initiation, is quite interesting. Gadadhara Pandit Goswami was great friends with Mukunda Dutt, another great associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mukunda Dutt wanted to invite Gadadhara Pandit Goswami to see this other great devotee named Pundarik Vijayanidhi. Now, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu considered Pundarik Vijayanidhi to be the father of Srimati Radharani, an incarnation of Rishabhanu. And many times Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would call him, Father, Father, where's my father? So we had that relationship because Lord Chaitanya was in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So, anyway, so one time Mukunda, who was a great singer, he was known for his melodious kirtans, he asked Gadadhara Pandit Goswami to go see Pundarik Vijayanidhi. And he said, I want to introduce you to this great Vaishnava. So he brought him to see Pundarik Vijayanidhi. But when Gadadhara Pandit Goswami saw Pundarik Vijayanidhi, he saw someone who he assumed or considered to be a great materialist, because he was sitting on an opulent bedstead with his hair slicked back with sandalwood oil or some other type of oil, and he was chewing pan. You imagine if you go to see a great personality, Guru Maharaj. He's sitting on a four-poster bed, silk sheets, lying back like this, chewing pan, long hair, and so on, with a chamra whisk. He's thinking, oh my God, this guy's a materialist. So Gadadhara Pandit Goswami was thinking like that, and Mukunda Dat understood his thoughts, and Mukunda Dat began to chant a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam that elaborated on Krishna's mercy. And when Pundarik Vijayanidhi heard it, he just fell into ecstasy, kicked apart the whole bed with the sheets and everything like that, and just went into a swoon. And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami understood, I have committed a great offense in my mind by thinking negatively about this great personality. What can I do? What can I do? So what he did was that after Pundarik Vijayanidhi came back into external consciousness, he asked Pundarik Vijayanidhi to become his disciple. And Pundarik Vijayanidhi said at that point, only after many births do I get a disciple like this. I've never said that about any of my disciples. So, but obviously, Gadadhara Pandit Goswami Srimati Radharani is the best disciple. So, after some time, on an auspicious day, he took initiation from Pundarik Vijayanidhi, and so that was his disciplic succession. And so what? An interesting story is later on, and we're going to skip ahead and then go back a little bit, but later on, when they were in Jagannath Puri, then Gadadhara Pandit Goswami gave initiation. What was his name again? Anyway, to let's see, the head of the Pushki Marg. What's his name again? Balabhavata. That's right. So, Balabhacharya, or Balabhavata, actually Balabhacharya is more appropriate, Balabhacharya. So Balabhacharya was basically questioning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And at one point he committed some really great offenses. He wanted prophet adoration, distinction. He wanted to be respected by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So at one point he actually criticized Sridhar Swami, the original commentator in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And he said, I found faults in Sridhar Swami's commentary. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Balabhacharya that you are unchaste because you have found fault in the Swami. You know, so he was making a comparison. Swami could sometimes be used to indicate someone's husband. In fact, the ladies should always call their husband Swami. Swami or whatever, some term like that. No, you don't like that?
Swamiji.
Swamiji. And the husband should always call the wife Priya. These are the nice terms.
Priya means?
Dear. Someone who's dear. So anyway, so basically, Lord Chaitanya got really upset and said, you're a prostitute. Anyone who does not respect the husband is a prostitute. And so he rejected Balabhacharya, and Balabhacharya was associating a lot with Gadadhara Pandit Goswami at that particular time. They were, great friends. And Balabhacharya was reading forcefully his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam to Gadadhara Pandit Goswami. And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami didn't want to hear it because he understood that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was upset, but because he was so shy and withdrawn, he just went along with it. I mean, sometimes someone is really shy, you don't want to talk back to someone, and then they can get away with anything. So we should not be like that. If someone talks nonsense or tries to engage us in nonsense, we should be very direct. We're not interested in hearing from you. But at Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, he was very reluctant to question Vallabhacharya. So it's described that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and many of his devotees sort of neglected Gadadhara Pandit Goswami because of that. And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami didn't say anything to Lord Chaitanya. This just shows his very shy, reticent nature. And eventually, he apologized, not Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, but eventually Vallabhacharya apologized to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he gave Gadadhara Pandit Goswami permission to initiate Vallabhacharya. So if you talk to many people in the Pushti Bar who are followers of Vallabhacharya, they don't know that story. In fact, they may get a little upset. If they hear the story about Vallabhacharya making a mistake and not understanding the commentary of Sridhar Swami. So one time there was an article in the Bhakti Godhead published about this, and some of the devotees in the Pushti Marg got very upset, particularly Sumati Moraji. You all know Sumati Moraji?
Yeah.
She's the one who sponsored Prabhupada in the Scindia steamship company to go to America. So she got really upset, and Prabhupada had to cover for us. So many times we can publish something, but we have to consider the repercussions of publishing a particular work. Even though it may be true, we know the austerities of speech are such a priya hitam. You have to speak truthfully, but pleasingly and beneficially. So think about that before you speak. I mean, many times you could say something that's truthful and be very offensive at the same time. So eventually, Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, getting the permission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, initiated Vallabhacharya, and then Gadadhara Pandit Goswami spoke to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to him, "Why did you say something?" And then Gadadhara Pandit was so shy. He said, "I didn't want to speak back to you," basically. That's different than Radharani. Srimati Radharani would have given Krishna the sauce. Isn't it? And Krishna enjoys that. He enjoys getting the sauce, so to speak. So, anyway, getting back to Navadvip pastimes, one time Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, "Where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? I want to be with Krishna." And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami said, "Krishna's in your heart." And then Lord Chaitanya began to tear apart his flesh, flesh or his spiritual body. And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami grabbed his hands. And when Sachimata saw that, she said, "Gadadhara, you always have to remain with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu." So, so more stories about Gadadhara Pandit Goswami. Of course, we know that Gadadhara Pandit Goswami was always caring for the deity of Tota Gopinath in Jagannath Puri. And he had taken the vow of Kshetra Sannyas, which Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktivinoda Thakur states that is the preferable stage of sannyas. Not the type. Of course, the sannyas I have is for preaching Krishna consciousness, but for one's own spiritual benefit, if there's not like preaching considerations there, then Kshetra Sannyas is the preferable type of sannyas. Now, what does that mean? That means one takes a vow. One may even remain, of course, in the case of Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, he didn't have a wife or family, but one may even remain with one's wife or family, but be very renounced and preach Krishna consciousness and take a vow to remain in one place or to take up a particular type of service. Kshetra means a place, and then serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there's no need of completely renouncing one's family. One can actually utilize one's family in Krishna consciousness, but no longer engage in business activities, economic development, or any type of sense gratification. One has to be very, very austere. So Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, of course, didn't have a family, except for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he had taken this vow of Kshetra Sannyas in Jagannath Puri, and throughout his whole final pastimes, he was serving Tota Gopinath. And the famous story is that Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, while he was serving Tota Gopinath, he became quite old and unable to serve Tota Gopinath because the deity of Tota Gopinath used to be really tall. And, when you get old, well, really old, then you can't reach up if something is really tall. I mean, sometimes you see the even the deities in the temple, sometimes the pujaris, they have to climb different steps, and I don't know how you take care of the deities here. Phew. Must be a real struggle, isn't it? To climb up. It's pretty hard, isn't it?
Yeah, for Tilakini Mataji, yes. And
She's expert. But I think one day maybe Radhagiri Hari will come down. So when Tilakini wants to take care of them, then and she's not able to climb all those steps, they'll just come down, please, and then they'll go back up again because of her devotion. So Gadadhara das Goswami was thinking he wasn't going to be able to address the deities anymore, Tota Gopinath. And then one morning, he woke up and Tota Gopinath was sitting down. Really big deity, Tota Gopinath, beautiful deity. And the devotees of ISKCON, particularly Indradyumna Maharaj and his disciples, have erected a kirtan hall right in front of the deities. So there's a new structure right in front of the deities there. So really beautiful deity. So the deity agreed to sit down. So anyway, getting back to that vow, so he vowed not to leave Jagannath Puri. So that became problematic when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left Jagannath Puri to go on his various trips. You know, at one point he went to South India. Of course, during the final years of his pastimes, he remained in Jagannath Puri. But in the first few years of his Jagannath Puri service, he kept leaving. He went to South India, he went to Braj, he went to Varanasi, Kashi, went to all these different places to preach Krishna consciousness and also to instruct Rupa and Sanatana Goswami in Krishna consciousness. So he was quite busy in traveling. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commemorated Krishna. Govinda has commemorated the places where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited by installing the feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in those various places. Govinda. Govinda. That's interesting. Go. So anyway, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commemorated these different places of pilgrimage by installing Lord Chaitanya's Mahaprabhu's feet in those places. So wherever you go, you can actually see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet. We did some tours following Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's footsteps, and we saw Lord Chaitanya's feet in each of those places. Like when you're, some of the Nishinga temples, when you're climbing the stairs like in Mangalgiri, you actually see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet there in the bottom. And also in Tirupati is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet. I'd have to show you where they are.
Also the Kurukshetra?
Kurmakshetra also, yeah. Kurmakshetra, Mangalgiri, Alalanath, and also Ahobalam. Ahobalam, where you have these Nava Nrsimha deities.
Yeah.
So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet are installed. So anyway, so Lord Chaitanya did travel, and Gadadhara Pandit Goswami wanted to go with him. And as they reached the outskirts of Jagannath Puri, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You better go back. You took this vow of Kshetra Sannyas." And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, out of his love for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, said, "Let my Kshetra Sannyas go to hell." It's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this, for those of us who were raised in the modern world, violating your vows, you're all right, so Hare Krishna. I'll just chant Hare Krishna and commit the offense of sinning on the strength of chanting. Anyway, so we don't take vows or promises so seriously, but that was a heavy statement, a really heavy statement. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's described, had protected that vow, so actually he hadn't broken it. And then he sent him back, and Gadadhara Pandit Goswami fainted. So that's another story. Another story about Gadadhara Pandit Goswami occurred after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world. And of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world by entering into the Tota Gopinath deity. If you go to see the deity and you give the Prajarya donation, he'll let you see the streak on the thigh of the deity where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered. So after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, Gadadhara remained for a very short period of time. So this great devotee, Srinivasacharya, the next generation, amongst the next generation of Vaishnavas, Srinivas, Shaimananda, and Narottama Das Thakur, went to hear the Bhagavatam from, first of all, Lord Chaitanya, but Lord Chaitanya had disappeared before he got to Jagannath Puri. And then he went to hear the Bhagavatam from Gadadhara Pandit Goswami and Sarup Damodar Goswami. So when he went there, he found that the Bhagavatam that they had utilized before was illegible because Lord Chaitanya and Gadadhara Pandit Goswami's tears had washed away all the writing on the Bhagavatam. So then he went, Srinivasacharya went to get another copy of the Bhagavatam, left Jagannath Puri, and he came back and found that Gadadhara Pandit Goswami had left this world. Also Gadadhara Pandit Goswami had left this world, entering into the deity room of Tota Gopinath. So both of them left in that particular way. So now I'm going to read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita about Gadadhara Pandit Goswami. And this is from, some verses are from the Adi Leela. And this is Prabhupada's words, Prabhupada's translation. And I'm just going to read the English. Gadadhara Pandit, the fourth branch of the Chaitanya tree, is described as an incarnation of the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. That's, of course, Srimati Radharani. No one, therefore, can equal him. So this is the substantiation of what I stated before. In the Gora Ganadesh Tipika 147 to 53, it is stated the pleasure potency of Sri Krishna, formerly known as Vrindavaneshwari, is now personified in the form of Sri Gadadhara Pandit in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Sarup Damodar Goswami has pointed out that in the shape of Lakshmi, the pleasure potency of Krishna, she was formerly very dear to the Lord as Shama Sundara Vallabha. That same Shama Sundara Vallabha was present in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes as Gadadhara Pandit. Formerly as Lalita Saki, so here she's being described as Radharani, and also, because Lalita Saki is an expansion of Srimati Radharani, and also Lalita Saki has the same mood as Srimati Radharani, the left-handed bomb. You understand? Mm-hmm. Left-handed mood. Whereas Vishaka is a different mood. Vishaka is more trying to make peace between Radha and Krishna. But Lalita is reflecting the anger that Radharani has. Formerly as Lalita, she was always devoted to Srimati Radharani. Thus, Gadadhara Pandit is simultaneously an incarnation of Srimati Radharani and Lalita Saki. So, and here's a description, brief description of what I just talked about. When Gadadhara, this is Prabhupada's words, when Gadadhara Pandit started to go with the Lord, this is when Lord Chaitanya left Jagannath Puri, he was forbidden to come and was asked not to give up the vow of Kshetra Sannyas. And Prabhupada explains exactly what I just said, see? Just corroborating my own words so you don't think I'm speculating. When one takes Kshetra Sannyas, he leaves his household life and goes to a place of pilgrimage devoted to Lord Vishnu. Such places include Purushottama, Jagannath Puri, Navadvip Dham, and Mathura Dham. The Kshetra Sannyasi lives in these places alone or with his family, see? Or they may travel and preach Krishna consciousness, but they take a specific vow. That's the main thing. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur considers Kshetra Sannyasa to be the preferable Vanaprastha situation in this age of Kali. So ladies, don't worry, your husband's not going to leave you. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya lived in this way, and he has been called a Kshetra Sannyasi, that is a sannyasi living in Jagannath Puri. So this is the narration of the story I just told. When he was requested to return to Jagannath Puri, Gadadhara Pandit told the Lord Wherever you are staying is Jagannath Puri. Let my so-called Kshetra sannyasa go to hell. So he directly said that. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Gadadhara Pandit to remain at Jagannath Puri and engage in Gopinath's service, Gadadhara Pandit replied, one renders service to Gopinath 1,000,000 times simply by seeing your lotus feet. Lord Chaitanya said, if you abandon his service, this is now from Madhya Lila. We're reading, we skipped ahead from Adi Lila, Madhya Lila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, if you abandon his service, it will be my fault. It is better that you remain here and render service. That will be my satisfaction. The Pandit replied, do not worry. All the faults will be on my head. I shall not accompany you, but shall go alone. I shall go to see Sachimata, but I shall not go for your sake. I will be responsible for abandoning my vow of service to Gopinath. Thus Gadadhara Pandit Goswami traveled alone, but when they arrived at Katak, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called him, and he went to the Lord's company. No one can understand the loving intimacy between Gadadhara Pandit and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhara Pandit gave up his vow and service to Gopinath just as one gives up a piece of straw. And as I said before, it's hard for us people in this world, in Kali Yuga, to understand what that means. You know, giving up your vows. But people do it just like that nowadays. And Prabhupada explains, this is Prabhupada's purport, just to get Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's association, Gadadhara Pandit gave up his life's vow to engage in Gopinath's service. This kind of loving affection can be understood only by the very confidential devotees. Ordinarily, no one can understand its purport. Gadadhara Pandit's behavior was very pleasing to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart. In other words, Lord Chaitanya was pleased, even though he chastised him. Nevertheless, the Lord took his hand and spoke to him, displaying the anger of love. So here you see Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna in the mood of Radharani, exhibiting anger. Interesting, isn't it? And Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, who is an incarnation or appearance of Srimati Radharani, just being very submissive. So he's very submissive. So Radharani here is submissive to Krishna, who's in the mood. Think about all the Bhavs here. You know, Radharani here is submissive to Krishna, who is in the mood, her mood, and to respect him taking her mood, she's becoming submissive to Krishna. Oh my God! You have abandoned Gopinath. This is Lord Chaitanya saying, you have abandoned Gopinath's service and broken your vow to live in Puri. All that is now complete because you have come so far. Your wanting to go with me is simply a desire for sense gratification. But Lord Chaitanya was pleased internally. Remember this. In this way, you're breaking two religious principles, and because of this, I'm very unhappy. In other words, you broke your vow, and you have a desire for sense gratification. It's really not sense gratification to want to associate with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But actually, sometimes Prabhupada would send devotees away to preach. I mean, there's one interesting story that one particular devotee was Prabhupada's servant, and Prabhupada said, I want you to go to Europe and take charge in Germany and Eastern Europe. And it's so interesting how Prabhupada, so he was crying, you know, and he was thinking Prabhupada is rejecting him, everything like that. So eventually he goes to Eastern Europe, preaches with great success, comes back, and he presents his results to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, out of humility, says, you were simply sitting here rotting. You know, serving the Guru, rotting. So this is the humility. So Lord Chaitanya is showing that particular humility. If you want my happiness, please return to Nilachal. You will simply condemn me if you say any more about this. Also similar to when Bharat came out to bring Lord Ramchandra back to Ayodhya, isn't it? Because the ultimate argument was, you may want me to come back to Ayodhya, but if you want my happiness, if you love me, you'll do what I want, not what you want to do with me. Think about it. But these, you know, and also the interesting things I mentioned before, Bharat is the same as Lord Ramchandra. They're both the same person. And so is Lakshman and Shatrugna. They're Chaturvyuha expansions. Dvaita Chuta Nadi Ranata Rupam Ajam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha. So interesting how the Lord, if you actually think about all these interactions and emotions between the Lord and his devotees, and the Lord and Srimati Radharani, who is exhibiting different emotions, and Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani, it's so inconceivable, isn't it? It's actually inconceivable. And even Lord Chaitanya one time was beating up Advaitacharya. You know that story?
Yeah.
Advaitacharya was teaching the Yoga Vasishta, some impersonal understanding of Krishna, not Krishna consciousness, but some impersonal understanding. And then he was doing that so Lord Chaitanya would beat him up. He wanted to be beaten up by Lord Chaitanya because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always showing him respect, being the elder Vaishnava. So he teaches this Yoga Vasishta. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in a fit of anger with Lord Nityananda, goes to, it's such an interesting story. He goes to Shantipur, because on the way to Shantipur they ate in the house of some Shakta, who Lord Chaitanya didn't know he was a Shakta, because the Shakta offered Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what he called happiness, which was actually liquor. And then Lord Chaitanya, to purify himself after that, swam the rest of the way to Shantipur in the Ganga. And so anyway, so he gets to Advaitacharya, but remember, Advaitacharya and Lord Chaitanya, the same person, basically. It's Krishna in different moods simultaneously. This is inconceivable. And Lord Chaitanya starts beating him up, pummeling him, punching him. And then Sita, who is not Sita of Lord Ram Sita, but Advaitacharya's wife, says, "You're going to kill the old man." And then Lord Chaitanya said, "I don't care, he's teaching us nonsense." And then Advaitacharya starts dancing in ecstasy. So these are inconceivable. The point I'm making, of course, there's nothing to do with Gadadhara das Goswami, but it has everything to do with the inconceivable exchanges between the Lord and Srimati Radharani, between the Lord and his incarnations, the Lord and his pure devotees. Who can conceive of these things? Isn't it? If you try to understand it, it just, as they say, it just blows your mind. So anyway, he's, "If you want my happiness, please return to Nilachal. You will simply condemn me if you say any more about this matter." Saying this, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got into a boat, and Gadadhar Pandit immediately fell down unconscious. So Lord Chaitanya ordered Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to take Gadadhar Pandit with him. The Bhattacharya told Gadadhar Pandit, "Get up, such are the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You should know that Lord Krishna himself violated his own promise just to keep the promise of grandfather Bhishma." So you all know that pastime. Grandfather Bhishma vowed to kill Arjuna that particular day, and Krishna, in order to save Arjuna, he took the chariot wheel and he rushed at Grandfather Bhishma, and Arjuna grabbed Krishna's feet and said, "Don't do it, I'll fight seriously." Simply tolerating separation from you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, in other words, Lord Chaitanya internally was feeling separation from Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, according to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya again speaking. Simply tolerating separation from you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has protected your vow with great endeavor. So Gadadhara Pandit Goswami, also we can understand the great mood of loving exchanges between devotees by examining this. Previously we were reading from the Jaiva Dharma, we heard about all these Babajis, how they had such loving, humble exchanges and service exchanges between each other. And so this is Krishna consciousness. Not denigrating other devotees, but serving other devotees, and just loving all the devotees. Even if a devotee has some apparent fault, it's like a spot on the moon. So we should consider it like that. It's just like a spot on the moon. And so we just feel so happy, loving. This is our family. Like we were talking about last night. Prabhupada said his greatest accomplishment was this, what he called the United Nations of the spiritual world. He had people of all sorts of different races, nationalities, religious backgrounds, all joining together, according, like Bhakti Vinod Thakur said, chanting Jai Satchinanda, Jai Satchinanda, and having loving exchanges. Not that we should have separate groups of people who are from different ethnic groups. You understand? I mean, this is not what Prabhupada envisioned. He wanted everyone. Prabhupada said it's like a garland with many colored flowers in it. It becomes more beautiful. Like generally, they see all the ladies, very few are wearing a sari with just one color. There's a border, there's different colors. Just one color means you're, just white or something like that. Like him. It's tasteless. Anyway. Not really. So anyway, so we're going to read some more. Let's see. No, we already told the story about Pundari Vijayaniti. And that's it for the. So let's see. Anyway, I think that's about it for today. We told the story of Pundari Vijayaniti. I'm not going to read the whole story here from Chaitanya Bhagavad. So anyone have any questions about Gadadhara Pandit Goswami? Yes.
Was I'm born in near Gadadhar Pandit place.
Wow. You are very
Pundari
fortunate.
Vijayaniti and Basudem Mukundadattam.
Yeah.
Same district. Because I don't know when I'm ISKCON. But you know this. Here is today have this new temple. Gadadhar Pandit is Vaishnava Akara.
Right.
ISKCON got the land there.
Good.
They are making today temple. Many devotees, Hare Krishna devotees going there.
Very nice.
This is called Chattigram on right in
Chattigram.
Chaitanya. This is now Chittagong is Bangladesh.
Oh, it's in Bangladesh.
Yeah, many acharyas born in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah,
Then
Bangladesh.
they're Pandit, the 7. Because you don't know, when in reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was in last year, December 31st, I was there.
Oh, good. Thank you for that.
Pundari Vijayaniti, Basudem Mukundadattam.
You are very fortunate.
You don't know when,
You're-
know now Hare Krishna.
You're a resident of the Holy Dham. Dhambasi. So, you have a question or?
Question now, there, because they have this Banina, Gadadhar Pandit, Radha.
Yeah.
They're worshipping, because mostly worshipping Gaur Nitai,
Going to time.
but now is sometimes some temple in Gaur Gadadhar worshipping.
Yes, yeah. Do you want a question? You have a question about that? Okay, I can answer that question. Generally in the Gaudiya Math,
Yeah,
it's Gaur Gadadhar.
yeah, Gaur Gadadhar.
And then people question, why did Prabhupada install Gaur Nitai everywhere if generally it's Gaur Gadadhar? My answer to that is because for preaching in the Western world or preaching amongst people who are in a fallen condition, which is just about everybody in the Western world and in Fiji, so Hino Nitai Bine Bhai Radha Krishna Poite Nai. You understand?
Yeah.
We need Lord Nityananda's mercy. Lord Nityananda, of course, Lord Nityananda is Balaram Hoylen Tai, and then you have the statement, Nayamatma Bala Hinena Labdwa. Without the mercy of Balaram, no one makes any spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada understood that the worship of Gaur Gadadhara is a very high-level worship. Like we were describing the different bhavs or emotions that are manifest between them. It's quite complicated. Like even if you talk about the emotions manifested between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath, it's actually very complicated. Lord Jagannath during Rath Yatra is Krishna who is feeling separation from Radharani. And then Lord Chaitanya is Krishna who's in the mood of Radharani. So you have Krishna experience separation from himself who happens to be in the mood of Radharani. It's for those of us, I basically after 200 years in the Hare Krishna movement, I'm beginning to understand it. But for presenting Krishna consciousness to people in general, when you're dealing with such a fallen culture in the Western world, and also fallen culture in India now. I mean, that, like we were describing yesterday, that even where you come from, sorry about this, in so it went off the air. So we're back on the air. So basically, I mean, the whole world is in a very fallen condition. So without Lord Nityananda's mercy, Nitai, no, we're not going anywhere. And that was Prabhupada's realization. It doesn't reflect on Prabhupada's rust with Krishna. Some people speculate, that because Prabhupada sold Gaur Nitai instead of Gaur Gadadhara, that means Prabhupada is a particular rust, understand. It has nothing to do with it. It's Prabhupada understanding how much mercy we needed.
Yeah.
Because Gaur Gadadhara worship is very, very elevated. Very elevated. You have Radharani. I mean, Prabhupada, and even Srila Vyasadeva, Gadadhara Goswami, he didn't speak so much about Radharani, didn't even mention Radharani's name when he was reading the Srimad, or speaking the Srimad Bhagavatam to Pariksit Maharaj. Of course, that's because he wouldn't have been in ecstasy. And you don't find Prabhupada talking that much about Radharani. I mean, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is there, but when the devotees concentrated just on those verses in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada got angry at them because there was this Gopi Baba Club in Los Angeles. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. And they were reading from the Prabhupada's books and just concentrating on, these intimate loving exchanges and Lord Chaitanya's intimate moods. And Prabhupada got very angry. He said, instead of getting purified, you're getting putrefied.
Mm-hmm.
So the fallen condition of the people in Kali Yuga is such that if we hear about conjugal loving affairs prematurely, we will project our own conceptions upon those affairs, in our mentally, and it will stimulate our lust. Like you see, so many people go to Radha Kund, so many devotees go to Radha Kund, and they're drawn in with the conception by some of the Babajis that they can understand themselves as gopis when they haven't overcome their anarthas, haven't even worked on basic Krishna consciousness 101. You're chanting rounds every day, maybe. So, maybe they are chanting rounds, but it's just, and they picture themselves in their mind's eye as gopis. So it would have created a lot of sahajism in our movement had Prabhupada concentrated on Gaur Gadadhara worship. Plus the fact that we need Lord Nityananda. Because Gaur Gadadhara, we have Gaur Gadadhara, you don't have Nitai on the altar at that particular point. Unless you have Panchatattva. So when Prabhupada never installed Gaur Gadadhara. The only time there was Gaur Gadadhara was when you had the whole Panchatattva, which is just in like 2 or 3 temples in ISKCON where Prabhupada had that. So anyway, so that's my realization about Prabhupada understanding what we needed for preaching. And the proof is that Prabhupada was successful. I couldn't imagine a temple where you had, in the Western world at least, where you had Gaur Gadadhara worship. I just couldn't imagine how it would go on without people becoming, really confused or fallen. Isn't it? Think about it. But Nitai, I mean, Lord Nityananda's preaching. Dinahina Yatachilo Harinam Udarilo, right? He's out there, he's bold, he's preaching, he's an avaduta. He doesn't care what people think about him. He's not shy. That's Nitai. Because he wears a lot of jewelry too, related in everything. And sometimes he throws off his clothes, but don't imitate him. Isn't it?
He goes naked.
Yeah. In Navadvip, he just threw off his clothes and Lord Chaitanya covered him and said, "What are you doing?" But that was an ecstasy, loving ecstasy. And when you have Nitai, there's not so much concentration on the conjugal pastimes, because as Prabhupada said, you don't put Balaram and Krishna and Radharani on the same altar, because there's conflict there. So basically, there's more concentration on preaching, more concentration on Lord Chaitanya's greatness rather than thinking of the conjugal pastimes. And that was Prabhupada's strategy. And it worked. And we should continue worship Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. I can't remember when Prabhupada installed Gaur Gadadhar. I can't even remember an instance of that. But it's bona fide. Nothing wrong with it. But Prabhupada understood how to save us more than any of his godbrothers. Prabhupada understood how to change, because he was meditating on the order of his spiritual master. And, that was also, Prabhupada, or the spiritual master, the manifestation of Nityananda. So Prabhupada was teaching us by his own practical actions the importance of Lord Nityananda, the spiritual master. Because Prabhupada's concentration was Vyavasayatmaka Buddhi Reka Kotanandana on the order of his guru. So that's my humble realization. That explain that? Yeah, but this Gaur Gadadhar worship is beautiful. I mean, I go there, I love it when I see Lord Chaitanya with Gadadhar. So anyone else have questions about any of these things? Yeah.
Questions with it. After initiation of Srila Gadadhar Pandit by Pundrik Pragyanidhi, after some time in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we hear how he went to, that's Gadadhar Pandit went to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, my mantra. From
That's another story.
How do you understand that part?
Well, Lord Chaitanya was with Gadadhar in Jagannath Puri, and Gadadhar said, I want to get my mantra again. I want to reinvigorate my mantra, because that's initiation, means you get a specific mantra. And it's interesting that different branches of the Sampradaya and even different acharyas may give different Gayatri mantras. Yeah, it's not that everyone gets the same Gayatri mantras. Prabhupada established our standard. Okay. The 7 Gayatri mantras and the additional one for sannyasis. So he went to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, pretty much I'm forgetting my mantra or something like that. Please can give me the mantra again. And Lord Chaitanya severely chastised him, because offending his spiritual master, Punjarik Vijayanidhi. So that's the story. Because he wanted to get the mantra. Sometimes people may do that. But once you get the mantra, it's like taking 2 gurus. You have one mantra guru and one Harinam guru. That sometimes happens if the Harinam guru is not there. But as far as the Gayatri mantra, it's a great offense to take it again from someone else. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught that. Other questions? Quick before. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you for explaining what is really very inconceivable pastimes. You were talking about how he apologized for an offense in the mind, which we do all the time. As neophytes, what should we try and focus on to manage offenses in the mind?
Well, you don't have to take initiation from everybody you offend in your mind. That would be a little unwieldy since you're initiated already. Anyway, so I think we commit offenses in the mind, we should serve the person. Because, yeah, that's the proper attitude. And think of the person's good qualities. First of all, change the mental attitude. Like I often say, you can't do it, don't. So think positively about the person. See what positive things the person has done. Like I said, don't look at the spots in the moon. Although Radharani got very upset when Krishna said your face is like the moon. He just said, you think my face has spots in it? So anyway, isn't it? Yeah, really angry. So anyway, craters. So we oftentimes tend to harp like a fly. Oh yeah, we look for the sores. Rather than thinking of the good qualities of someone. So then we just substitute the consciousness and we start to think of the good qualities of someone. That's the first thing. Rectify the consciousness, and then we may have to apologize. We may want to apologize. I thought this about you. I thought that about you. But sometimes it may hurt the person if we explain what we were thinking before. So we just say, if I've ever offended, here's a general apology. If I've ever offended you. Sometimes that general apology is not good because one will not admit one's faults. Sometimes people say, apologize. And you say, if I ever made a mistake, then I apologize for it. Sometimes it's actually good to admit the specific mistake you made because you're taking ownership of the mistake. But in the case of offenses in the mind, it's usually so you don't hurt the person. It's usually saying something, please, if I've ever made a mistake or ever made an offense, please forgive me, general statement like that. And then, is there any way I can serve you? Like that, you offer service. And that's the way to deal with it. And with a positive, rather than just taking initiation. It's a good question. How to deal with offenses. And because because of our mind, we're so much fault finding, we tend to commit offenses with devotees. And so we should try to think positively about everyone, see the positive qualities and serve them. So any other questions or comments or problems or issues or complaints? No?
I'd like to share something. You were discussing earlier about the inconceivable ways in which Krishna reciprocates in different incarnations. And there's an interesting definition of absolute truth, which Srila Jiva Goswami discusses in Bhakti Sandarbha. He says the absolute truth is one in which opposing qualities exist simultaneously in perfect harmony. That's his definition of absolute truth.
Thank you for that. That's really nice. Opposing qualities exist simultaneously in absolute harmony.
And that's exactly what you explained earlier with how he's able to do simultaneously in different incarnations.
I mean, it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. Bart, and you had Lakshman who wanted to kill Bart, right? Because he thought Bart was going to kill Lord Ramchandra. I mean, amazing interactions. You have Mahavishnu who wanted to see Krishna. So he makes the trick of stealing the Brahmin's sons. There's so many stories that come to mind that illustrate that fact.
Some of the examples that Jiva Goswami quotes to explain that is on one hand, Krishna lifts the Govardhan hill, so mighty strong. On the other hand, when the gopis ask him to lift a pot of butter, oh no, it's too heavy for me. Just give me the butter.
On one hand, he's God, on the other hand, he's worried about the gopis.
So many.
Or Mother Yashoda is tying him up. The Damodar pastime. So there's so many apparently contradictory things that appear in the Lord's pastimes. The main thing is it's inconceivable. And the main thing, and another point is Krishna is God. He could do anything. If you say there's something he can't do or it's impossible, then you're not fully understanding that Krishna is God. Because one of the qualities of God, he's aptakama. Whatever he wants happens. He's independent, swarat. So aptakama means he just wants something and it occurs. Doesn't even have to ask for it. Okay, I think it's getting late. So thank you all. Today is the appearance day of Gadadhara das Goswami, and we will be remembering him today. Today's my last day here. I'm sure you're all happy about that. Relief now, you can all rest. Oh yeah, here's a comment here online. Can we learn from Gadadhar Pandit loyalty and determination? Yes, that's lessons. Loyalty, determination, devotion, loving exchanges. I mean, he left right after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left. He couldn't bear
Separation
to stay in this world. And also Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the words were actually washed away. I mean, how many of us cry when reading the Srimad Bhagavatam? So there's so many lessons to be learned. So thank you very much, everybody. All glories to his divine.